The stop that should have been simple. The sun had barely set over Palm Beach County, and the heat of the day still clung to the air. Officer Derek Hayes adjusted his body camera strap, the faint red light blinking against his chest. What should have been a routine patrol, quiet neighborhood streets, just a few miles from the interstate, was about to spiral into something he'd remember for years. He noticed the silver sedan before anything else. It was weaving a little, nothing wild, just hesitant, the kind of nervous driving you see when someone spots a cruiser in their mirror. He flipped on his lights, expecting the driver to ease over to the curb. Instead, the car rolled forward another half block before stopping in front of a modest brick house. "License and registration," Hayes said through the open window. The woman behind the wheel didn't move. Her hands clutched the steering wheel tightly, knuckles pale under the street lamp. "Why?" she asked. "Ma'am, just routine. Please stay in the car." "Why?" she repeated, voice trembling but sharp. "I live here." "I understand, ma'am. I just need you to stay in the vehicle." But the door opened anyway. The woman, late 30s, hair in tight curls, still wearing what looked like work scrubs, stepped out and pointed toward the porch light ahead. "I'm home. You thought I was following you. I wasn't." Hayes tensed. He'd seen this before, the panic, the defiance, the confusion that comes when authority meets emotion. "Please get back in the car," he said, hand hovering near his belt but not yet reaching for the cuffs. From somewhere across the street, a screen door creaked open. A voice called, "Tanya, what's going on?" The woman, Tanya Lewis, turned toward the voice, then back at Hayes. "He's trying to kill me," she shouted, half pleading, half accusing. "He wants to kill me." Hayes took a careful step forward. "No one's hurting you, ma'am. Put your hands behind your back. You're being detained." That word, detained, was like a spark to gasoline. Tanya flinched backward, voice rising. "It's a murder! It's a murder! He's trying to murder me!" The shouting drew others. Porch lights snapped on, cameras peeked through curtains. Another patrol car rolled up, lights washing the scene in red and blue. Officer Ramos stepped out, hand already on his radio. "Got one detained?" "Trying to," Hayes muttered. Ramos moved to assist. Together they tried to guide Tanya toward the cruiser. She pulled away, still crying. "It's a murder! It's a murder!" Across the yard, a man, maybe her boyfriend or a neighbor, started walking toward them, phone in hand. "Hey! What's going on? She lives here." "Sir, back up," Ramos barked. "I'm not going anywhere. You need to back up or you'll be arrested for interfering." The man kept coming, shouting over the flashing lights. "She didn't do nothing. You're harassing her." That was enough. Ramos stepped between them, hand outstretched. "Back the up." For a few seconds it was chaos. Tanya screaming biblical verses, the man arguing about rights, neighbors filming from their lawns. Hayes finally clicked the cuffs around Tanya's wrists, reading her rights over her protests. When they guided her to the cruiser, she was still yelling. "You devils! I know who you are! In the name of Jesus!" Ramos looked exhausted. "You want to charge her for resisting?" "Yeah," Hayes said quietly. "Without violence. She's got a suspended license too." Tanya kept talking even as the door closed behind her. "I'm God's child. You can't hurt me. I'm anointed." Across the hood of the car, Hayes exhaled. The adrenaline that had pushed him through the past 5 minutes was starting to drain away, leaving only the humid night and the muffled sobs from inside the cruiser. Then, more footsteps. The same man from earlier returned, now with a woman by his side, maybe family. "You can't take her. That's my sister. She didn't do nothing." "Sir, ma'am, please stand back," Ramos said again, but his tone carried the edge of frustration. The woman ignored him. "Lord, please protect my children," she cried, voice cracking. "They've been after us for years." Within seconds, the situation was boiling again, voices overlapping, lights glaring, the tension wound tight enough to snap. Hayes signaled to Ramos to hold the perimeter while he called in for backup. Dispatch confirmed what he already suspected. Tanya's license was suspended, previous citations unpaid. Nothing major. It should have been a simple citation and release. But standing there, with the night echoing in shouts and prayers, it didn't feel simple anymore. It felt like something breaking: trust, control, maybe sanity. He heard a clang from the back seat and turned to see Tanya kicking at the divider, her face streaked with tears. "You don't know who you're messing with," she yelled. "You think you can hide behind that badge, but God sees everything." Ramos sighed. "Man, it's always the ones who start small that turn into a scene." Hayes didn't answer. He was watching the family across the yard, the phone still raised, red lights blinking in the dark. He knew how this would look online: another cop, another arrest, another argument about justice and authority. But inside the car, Tanya's cries softened into murmurs. "God is real, they can't hide forever." For a moment, the street fell quiet again, only the buzz of insects and the hum of the cruiser's engine. Hayes leaned against the door, the weight of the badge pressing heavier than usual. A traffic stop had turned into a public meltdown, and somewhere in between, the truth of what really happened had blurred. He glanced at Ramos. "She's saying we tried to kill her." Ramos gave a weary shrug. "Yeah. Cameras will show otherwise. Always do." But as Hayes drove Tanya away, he couldn't shake the feeling that something larger had unfolded, something beyond paperwork and protocol. Because sometimes, in the heat of flashing lights, the line between fear and guilt becomes almost impossible to see. When family shows up. The first few minutes after the arrest were quiet, too quiet. Officer Hayes leaned against the hood of his cruiser, listening to the faint hum of the dashboard camera. Inside the vehicle, Tanya's voice had softened to a low murmur, still repeating fragments of prayer and accusation under her breath. Ramos returned from speaking to dispatch. "Tow truck's on the way," he said. "Car's registered in her name. License suspended 6 months ago." Hayes nodded, jotting the details into his pad. Routine paperwork, but his mind was already somewhere else. He could still hear Tanya's words echoing in his head: "It's a murder. You're devils. I know who you are." He'd seen fear before. He'd seen guilt. But this was something different. A mix of paranoia and faith so deep it burned like conviction. Then, out of nowhere, a shout sliced through the night. "Let my daughter go!" Hayes turned. A woman, older, mid-50s maybe, was storming down the sidewalk, barefoot, robe flapping around her legs. Behind her, 2 younger men followed with phones held high, recording. "Here we go," Ramos muttered. Hayes stepped forward, palms open. "Ma'am, please stay back." But the woman didn't slow down. "You think I don't know what y'all doing?" she cried. "You've been watching us for years. You think I don't see it?" Ramos moved in to block her path. "Ma'am, I'm telling you, back up now." She jabbed a trembling finger toward Tanya's car window. "That's my baby in there. She didn't do nothing. You're not gonna touch her." Inside the cruiser, Tanya started yelling again, voice muffled through the glass. "Mama! They trying to kill me!" That single word, "Mama," shifted everything. The mother lunged forward, and the 2 young men spread out beside her. Neighbors emerged again, phones glowing like fireflies in the dark. It wasn't just a scene anymore, it was a spectacle. Ramos's voice rose. "Step back. I said back up." The older woman shouted something unintelligible, half prayer, half rage. Hayes reached out as calmly as he could, but when his hand brushed her arm, she jerked away like she'd been burned. "Don't touch me! In the name of Jesus, don't you dare touch me!" Ramos sighed, pulling out the cuffs. "Ma'am, you're interfering with an arrest." "In the name of Jesus!" she screamed again, dropping to her knees on the pavement. "You will not harm my children! You devils can't stop what God already blessed!" The crowd gasped. Some were laughing, others filming, a few shouting at the officers to stop. Hayes felt the tension rise in his chest. One wrong move, one misinterpreted gesture, and this would go viral before he even finished his report. He caught Ramos's eye. "We detaining or letting it ride?" "Detain her," Ramos said quietly. "Before this gets worse." They moved fast but careful, guiding the woman toward the second cruiser. She didn't fight, she just kept praying, whispering over and over, "Lord, protect me from these people." When the cuffs clicked shut, the younger men erupted. "You can't do that! That's her mama! Then tell her to stay out of the way," Hayes snapped, voice low but firm. One of them shoved forward, and Hayes's hand instinctively went to his holster, not to draw, but to remind everyone where authority stood. The boy froze, the crowd fell silent, and for a heartbeat, the night held its breath. Then the moment passed. Ramos escorted the mother to the back of the car while Hayes radioed for another unit. Inside the first cruiser, Tanya was still talking to no one. "They think I'm crazy, but God told me this would happen. They don't know who I am." Hayes leaned closer to the window. "Ma'am, no one's trying to hurt you. We just need to get this cleared up." She looked up, eyes glassy in the flashing red light. "You can't clear what's already written." That sentence stuck with him. Minutes later, Sergeant Willis arrived, a broad man with a shaved head and the calm tone of someone who'd seen every kind of chaos. He surveyed the scene, the crowd, the flashing lights. "All right, what do we got?" Hayes gave the rundown: suspended license, resisting without violence, mother detained for interference. Willis sighed. "Get them transported. Separate cars. Less drama that way." As the tow truck hauled Tanya's sedan away, a few neighbors shouted goodbyes, promises to post the whole thing. One woman yelled, "We saw everything! Y'all wrong for this." Hayes didn't answer. He just climbed into his cruiser and shut the door. Inside, the noise dimmed, but Tanya's voice filled the silence. "You think you did something tonight," she whispered, her voice soft now, almost mournful. "But this is just the beginning. Y'all don't know what's coming." Hayes didn't reply. He started the car, the radio crackling faintly with routine dispatch chatter. But as the wheels rolled down that narrow street, he felt something heavy settle in his chest. The job was supposed to be black and white, law and order. But tonight, it felt gray, twisted by fear, faith, and the kind of desperation that made people see demons in badges. When they reached the station, Tanya was still talking, her tone eerily calm. "You think I'm afraid of jail? Jail can't hold what God already freed." The booking officer looked at Hayes and raised an eyebrow. "Suspended license, resisting without violence?" "Yeah," Hayes said. "Keep it simple." He walked back to the lot, the humid air pressing down around him. Ramos joined him a minute later, shaking his head. "Family like that, man. You can't win. You do your job, you're the villain." Hayes stared at the horizon, faint streaks of dawn beginning to break. "Yeah," he said quietly. "And sometimes, you start to wonder if they're right." The radio crackled again, another call, another stop. Hayes slipped into the car, the echo of Tanya's final words following him like a ghost. "You can't hide behind that badge forever." And as the cruiser pulled back into the dark, he knew this wasn't the end of the story, just the calm before something worse. The next arrest. The morning after the incident, Officer Hayes sat at his desk, watching the bodycam footage play on a muted loop. The audio didn't need to be loud, he could still hear her words echoing from memory. "You're devils. It's a murder. You can't hide behind that badge." He paused the video. The freeze frame showed Tanya's eyes wide, tear-streaked, wild with fear or faith, maybe both. The official report would say, "Resisting without violence." The paperwork was neat, professional. But the truth beneath it felt messier. He hadn't meant for things to go that far. None of them had. Yet one moment of panic had turned a simple stop into a night of chaos. "Hey, you watching the Lewis footage again?" Ramos leaned in the doorway, coffee steaming in his hand. Hayes nodded. "Just trying to make sense of it." Ramos shrugged. "There's no sense in crazy. You did what you had to do." Before Hayes could answer, the radio crackled to life. Unit 12, respond to 14th Avenue. Possible robbery suspect detained. Backup requested. Ramos sighed. Guess reflection time's over. They grabbed their gear and headed out. The scene wasn't far, just a few blocks from where Tanya had been arrested the night before. The boy in the driveway. When they arrived, another pair of officers were already on site. A teenage boy, maybe 16 or 17, was pressed against the tailgate of a pickup, wrists in cuffs. He was shaking his head, voice cracking with panic. Bro, I didn't rob nobody. Why y'all doing this? The senior officer, Daniels, turned as Hayes approached. Says he didn't resist, but we got video from a corner store. Matches the clothes, timing, everything. Hayes studied the kid. Slim build, backpack half open, eyes darting between the officers. He looked terrified, but not violent. Name's Gavin, Daniels said. Lives a few streets over. Hayes crouched down slightly, lowering his tone. You understand why you're being detained? Gavin shook his head hard. I swear I didn't do it, sir. I was just walking home. Then, like the night before, the quiet shattered. A woman's scream came from across the yard. That's my son! Let him go! Hayes turned, and his stomach dropped. It was happening again. Another mother running, panic in her voice, phone in her hand. The officers formed a line instinctively, hands raised in warning. Ma'am, stay back! But she didn't listen. She shoved past one of them, grabbing her son's arm. You're not taking my baby! Ma'am, please! Hayes called out. He's just being detained while we verify. You're lying! She shouted, tears streaming. You're all lying! He didn't rob nobody. Gavin's eyes filled with tears. Mom, stop! Please! Get your hands off him! She screamed, trying to pull him free. In a split second, the situation exploded. Another officer reached for her wrist, she yanked back, he grabbed again, and suddenly, she was on the ground, crying out. Ramos stepped forward, voice sharp. Ma'am, you're under arrest for obstruction and resisting. Resisting what? She yelled, voice breaking. That's my child. Neighbors poured out of their houses, phones recording, the same eerie rhythm of chaos repeating itself. Hayes could feel it, the shift. That invisible line between law and family had been crossed again. The breaking point. The mother was placed in the back of a cruiser, her face streaked with tears. Gavin was silent now, staring through the glass at her, chest heaving. She's under arrest? He whispered. Hayes hesitated. For interfering. She shouldn't have run up like that. The boy's lips trembled. She was scared. I know, Hayes said softly. But this is how it happens. Fear makes people move before they think. He didn't know if he was talking to Gavin or himself. Inside the cruiser, the woman was praying, not unlike Tanya the night before. The words were different, but the tone was the same, desperate, pleading, broken. Lord, protect my son. Please don't let them take him. Daniels came over, clipboard in hand. Robbery victim ID'd him. Says he took a wallet after a fight near the corner store. We'll book him for now. Hayes stared at the boy. You sure it's him? Video says so. Video doesn't always tell the whole story. Hayes muttered. Daniels shrugged. Maybe not. But it's what we've got. When the lights fade. Hours later, after both suspects were processed, Hayes sat outside the precinct. The sun was setting again, the same hazy orange glow as the night before. The same streetlight flickering above the lot. He watched as the transport van pulled away, carrying Gavin to juvenile detention and his mother to county jail. Ramos joined him, dropping a folder onto the hood. 2 days. 2 arrests. Both started with something small. Crazy, right? Hayes didn't answer right away. Yeah, he said finally. But it's always like that. It's never the big calls that break you. It's the small ones, the ones that should have ended differently. Ramos leaned against the car. You did everything right, man. Maybe, Hayes said quietly. But doing it right doesn't mean it feels right. He looked across the parking lot, where the last traces of sunlight faded into blue. Somewhere in that quiet dusk, he thought about Tanya again, about her mother praying, about Gavin's mother shouting, about the look in their eyes when fear took over. And for the first time, he wondered if maybe it wasn't madness that drove them, maybe it was love. Desperate, uncontrollable love that didn't know when to stop. Epilogue: the line between fear and faith. Weeks later, the videos hit social media. Clipped, edited, captioned, a dozen versions of the same moment. Police brutality in Palm Beach. Officer assaults woman on her property. Family targeted by cops. Hayes turned off his phone. He didn't need to read the comments. He'd lived the moment. He replayed it in his mind every night, the flashing lights, the screams, the prayers, the eyes that saw him not as a man, but as a monster. A veteran once told him, "Every cop carries ghosts. Not from who they arrested, from who they couldn't reach." That night, sitting alone in his patrol car, Hayes finally understood. The law could command order. Training could control chaos. But nothing could control the human heart when fear and love collided in the dark. And for a brief, haunting second, as the radio called him to his next stop, he whispered under his breath, not as an officer, but as a man, "God help us all."